Welcome to the EntreEd Talk podcast. We are your hosts, Toi Hirschman and
Laura McCall.
Join us as we dive into incredible stories from inspiring entrepreneurs around the world.
Whether you are an educator looking for ideas to engage students, a new learner, or someone who wants to be inspired, our guest journeys and their ideas will give you resources to create value and take your own leap into entrepreneurship.
We are so looking forward to sharing our message with you. And don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe to the EntreEd Talk podcast on whatever platform you listen. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the EntreEd Talk podcast. We are overly excited today to have Dr. Amanda Jones. She is the newly appointed principal of Barton Academy for Advanced World Studies and also a member of our EntreEd Board. We're so excited to have her today. Dr. Jones, thank you for being here. Dr. Jones has been the MCPSS's, that's Mobile County Public School System in Alabama. She's been the coordinator for professional learning and special projects and innovation at their central campus. And she was the principal of Mary B. Austin Elementary School prior to that. That's where we met her, and she'll dive into all of that. But she will be the first principal at Barton Academy for Advanced World Studies, which will open in 2021 and serve students in grades 6 through 9. Barton Academy will focus on project-based learning and innovative instructional practices and will serve as a model for 21st century learning. And those of us that know Dr. Jones know that she is uniquely qualified to run this academy. So we're so excited to dive into all of that. Welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this is fantastic. We've been trying to get Amanda on for a while, so this is super exciting. So before we dive into all of the new and exciting things happening, can you give us a little bit more information on your background, your career journey, and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. I've been in education for about 18 years, a little over 18 years now. I actually started my career as a music teacher in a K-8 school. I taught K-8 music, but then I also taught band and chorus in middle school. And I taught a few other subjects in the middle school arena. And during that time, I was also earning my master's in instructional leadership or educational leadership at that time. I also spent some time and received my certification in elementary education. So I taught elementary school, primarily 5th grade for a while. Spent some time as an achievement specialist, during that time I worked with teachers, leading data-driven instruction and talking about best practices. I also served as an administrative intern and assistant principal. And then I became principal at Mary B. Austin, which we mentioned earlier, and I'll talk a little more about. And throughout all of that time, I was continuing my education. I received my ed specialist degree in leadership. And then while I was principal at Austin, I was in the doctoral program and earned my doctorate in education at that time. And then now most recently, I've been at the district level for about a year and a half. And like you said, I was recently named as principal for Barton Academy for Advanced World Studies, which will open next school year. And so this school year, I'll continue in some of my district roles, but also transition into building this school.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see you at that school.
Amanda, you and I have not met yet, except for online, so thank you. I want to dive in later to your whole music background, because I'm sure you're going to do a lot with that at Barton Academy. But in the meantime, so Toi and my colleagues got to meet you down at Mary B. Austin, and I know we have a lot of your teachers on our podcast. Tell us how you built the entrepreneurial spirit and culture there at that school.
As I mentioned, during that time, I did work on my doctorate, and my doctorate had to do with, the title was Leading the Charge in Changing Times, 21st Century Learning and Leading. So it's all about 21st century practices and how to really do that paradigm shift to 21st century learning. And so I always like to say that I believe that as a leader of a school, or a leader of any organization really, that you should be the lead learner of the school. And so it really just a lot of puzzle pieces fit together. And I was fortunate because I was working through that doctoral program and that dissertation of practice. Mary B. Austin was a little bit, I guess, kind of my guinea pig of as I was learning these new things, I would bring them back to the teachers. And we began to integrate a lot of those things that I was learning into what we were doing in the school day. And as I was, as we were doing that and going along that journey, I just began to realize how important everything that we were doing was. And so I would just, that had a lot to do with how our culture was built there at Austin. And we really began to dive into 21st century skills and project-based learning. And in project-based learning, it was something that we were really learning together, and we would continue to tweak and fine-tune, and giving teachers the opportunity, when we were learning about 21st century skills of collaboration and communication and critical thinking, I began to realize, if we want to expect this out of our students, we have to allow our teachers to have that opportunity. And so we just really began to build this culture of collegiality and collaboration, working together, realizing that, we have to be continuous learners. And so I am just very passionate about empowering others and empowering our educators, because in order for our students to have those skills, we have to allow our educators to have those skills as well and to use those skills as well. So I was always a fan of allowing them the opportunity to be creative and to step out of that, that textbook and that traditional sense of what we might recall or remember as we were growing up, as students, and really embrace collaborating and working together and being creative and innovative in our instruction.
I had to tell you guys, I was walking this morning and I saw this awesome bumper sticker. It has a little bit to do with what you're saying, Amanda. The essence was, if teachers allow freedom of their students, leaders will rise. And I think it's true. If they, like you said, you start from the top, you allowed your teachers the freedom, and then they can allow the students the freedom. And then they do lead if they're given, the ability.
Exactly.
Well, it trickle-down empowerment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's really, the schools that we talk to that are so successful have that same leadership style, because when you give the power to your teachers, they are able to be creative and give the power to their students. And it just, across the board, it changes the culture of a school. I'm curious, when you started the shift, what did the teachers think about that? Because it's kind of a different approach. And, you led by example, obviously, so that's helpful. But how did the teachers as a whole kind of take this whole shift in culture?
I think at first, like in anything that's different, it can be a little scary. We did a lot of reading and talking and learning about how to make that shift as the teacher being more the facilitator, because you are, as school leaders, as teachers, we're all a little bit of control freaks, we like to have that sense of control. And to some degree, you're learning how to give that up a little bit, but recognizing that for people to really learn and to own what they're learning, you have to allow them that freedom and flexibility to kind of recognize what they're passionate about and what engages them. So, it was a little scary at first. And so it took a lot of time, it took a great deal of time just to read and learn, and to ultimately you have to understand why you're doing what you're doing. So, I think if with anything that you're working with, if you're trying to engage in a new initiative or whatever, if the people around you don't know why you're doing it, then I think you're going to encounter a lot more resistance. But even though it's a scary thought for that to make that shift, the more you're able to help people understand why, so that they understand the purpose, then, I think you become more comfortable in every role to be able to make that happen. And then once you do start doing these things, you see the value and the benefit, you really truly see it. And then, it's like at that point you really buy in, and, you're on the run then.
It's funny as you're talking, and I'm shaking my head. I'm totally agreeing. And yet, I hope you don't feel like we're re-interviewing you, because we're very excited about you being at Barton. And so, when we've read the history, and of course I went on your LinkedIn and went on Barton. So my understanding, it goes all the way back to 1836 with this amazing history. If you look at the building, it's a little daunting. It's a little, intimidating to say, oh my gosh, I'm going to be the leader of this. Mm-hmm. So, I'm sure for the teachers at Barton, it's very cool to hear you, or we'll hear you talk about, the tenets of entrepreneurship and what it's leading up to, because they had a real sense of where you're going with it. Mm-hmm. What are your goals for there? And tell us how you can transition, that you have so many cool things to do there and to bring.
Mm-hmm. It really is an amazing opportunity. I feel very blessed and humbled to have the opportunity. Like you said, the building was built in 1836 as Alabama's first public school. And it operated as a public school from about the 1850s until about the 1960s. It actually had a period of time where it had to be shut down during the Civil War, and it was used as a hospital for Union soldiers in the 1860s. So there really is a lot of amazing history there. And there's been an amazing foundation here in Mobile, a nonprofit group called the Barton Academy Foundation, who has been working for about 10 years to raise funds to save the building, because it was actually put on one of Alabama's places of peril back in the early 2000s. After 2007, the building was no longer in use. It had been our central office district complex for a period of time until 2007. And after that time, it was not being used. And so this foundation was committed to preserving it because it does have such history. And they had the goal of seeing it reopen as a school, as a public school. And so the funding was after much hard work by that organization, they were able to get that funding. And so the exterior and the interior are being renovated. The exterior has already been renovated. The interior is currently being renovated. So you're going to have this gorgeous, my youngest child says it looks kind of like the White House. So you're going to have this gorgeous building. But on the interior, it's going to have all of the latest, 21st century that you would need for education. Having the opportunity to open it is really exciting. And as far as, it's actually called Barton Academy for Advanced World Studies. So it's going to have a global emphasis. We'll offer multiple foreign languages at the school. And I think what's going to make it really unique is I plan for us to offer project-based learning, and that be the core way that we're offering instruction in the school. So I'd love to step away from that quote unquote traditional bell schedule where, you're in this subject and then you switch to this subject, and really operate more along the lines of looking for problems and things that we can solve, and how can we integrate the various subject areas to accomplish that. So we'll be building project-based learning experiences for the students. There will be multiple labs. We'll have a STEM lab. We're going to have some emerging technologies lab, a collaborative lab, and then also we will be tying in entrepreneurial learning as well. And so the building is also very large. So there's a lot of space, a lot of unique spaces. And so I can really see us just having a lot of great opportunities, as my wheels are spinning. I love the thought of maybe having some type of student-run business that we could possibly host within the school. I love the idea of having like a music recording studio, but we're also going to have a strong emphasis on fine arts as well. So it's just really, the possibilities are endless. And this year, I'll be working toward finalizing some of those details, and the really amazing, as an administrator, exciting opportunity for me is that, I'll be hiring the staff from scratch. I mean, basically everything's from scratch. And so you're building it from the ground up. And so it's just a truly unique and amazing opportunity to fully build out the school for students. And it's for 6th through 9th grade students. So you'll have those middle grade students. And in Mobile County, 9th grade is traditionally a high school. Yeah. But we also, in each of our high schools here in Mobile County, we have what we call signature academies, which all have various an emphasis on different college or career paths. And those typically start in our 10th grade. So having Barton go through 9th, it gives them that opportunity to be prepared for any of those signature academies that they want to attend in one of our high schools.
Forethought on the part of the organizers and the foundation that they really incorporated the entire city, it sounds like, with this effort.
Yeah, it's located in downtown Mobile. And we do have a lot of international business in Mobile. And so it's just, there's just going to be a lot of great opportunities to build those connections with various businesses and the universities here in our area. I can see it being almost a showcase for the education here in Mobile.
That's incredible. I'm so excited for you. Can I commute from Maryland and work for you?
Yeah, come on.
Let me send you my resume.
Right?
I mean, this sounds
Please do.
So amazing.
For anyone, if anyone's listening and when they're listening, if it sounds amazing, shoot me your resume.
Oh,
That's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm looking.
First. So I'm curious how, what students get to go there? Because it's public school, but is it districted, or is there I don't want to say, I'm going to say it anyway, but like a lottery or kind of like a magnet school kind of stuff?
Yeah, it will operate under our magnet school program. So it will be more of a lottery base. So it is open to all of our students within our Mobile County Public School District zone. So, it gives anyone, you don't have to live, in that specific area of town. It gives anyone within our Mobile public school system the opportunity to apply to attend.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And can you explain for us a little bit, because I'm excited about the word global in the title and world studies. Tell us, you just mentioned that there are some great, international focused businesses in Mobile, but tell us how you see that. And I don't think you're giving this enough credit. You're saying it's going to be a showcase in Mobile. I think it's going to be a showcase really nationally. So how do you bring that global focus in?
Well, like I said, we are going to offer multiple foreign languages. But what I am envisioning is that we will, focus and study various cultures and various parts globally, and really maybe even looking at international problems and looking at ways that we could solve those problems. So, and also having a diverse student population where that's really kind of showcasing everyone in Mobile, because we really do have a lot of international business in our area. And so it's going to be about appreciating and recognizing the various different cultures and just what's going on globally and how to be prepared to be not just a citizen in Mobile, but to be that global citizen. And, having technology now, just like we're doing right now, you're able to connect with people so easily. And so I can see us having a lot of opportunities to where we actually do connect with people around the country and around the world using technology as well. So
That is amazing. I bet there's a school or many schools out there that would be willing to do, a collaborative effort with Barton Academy. That just sounds so cool. So so what made you decide to, like, you went from Mary Austin, and I saw the video that made me cry of all the kids saying goodbye to you.
It was a tough leave. It really was. I love Austin, still do.
So you made this transition, and we had podcasts, as Laura mentioned, with the new principal and some of our teacher friends that we know. Really great. So they're continuing that whole culture of collegiality and project-based learning, problem-based learning. But you transitioned to the board level. What is that? How's that different from your role as a principal? And then now you're going back into so yeah. Talk about how that's different and what you're able to do kind of at both levels.
I think I've learned that I am an entrepreneurial educator. I guess, I'm not afraid of taking a risk, and, I'm trying new things. But, when I was at Austin, I was just amazed at all that our students were learning and in seeing them grow and blossom. And I'm really passionate about seeing those experiences continue beyond what they were getting in elementary. I mean, I could see there were so many different opportunities that they were receiving. They were doing entrepreneurial projects beginning in kindergarten, and they were, using 3D printers, and they're coding, and they're doing all of these amazing things. And so I was really passionate as a principal, and then also a principal who happens to be a mom, in knowing that when they left fifth grade, that they'll be able to continue to grow on those experiences that they were receiving. And so an opportunity presented itself to join the district level. And for me, that really, what was, what drew me to do that was this idea of being passionate about seeing this grow into middle and high school, and just having that opportunity to hopefully make a difference on an even grander scale. And so that's what brought me to the district level. And then with Barton Academy, like you said, now I'm going to be moving back into the role as principal there. This gives me the opportunity to really take what we were doing at, what I know was working really well at Austin. And we are able to do this at a middle school and even ninth grade, kind of pulling in that high school aspect. And I think that it can serve as a good example of what education can really look like. If you are able to step outside that traditional sense and engage in these other types of experiences, these 21st century experiences and skills. And so I just, having that opportunity to get in there and do that, especially in a school that was, the first public school in Alabama, I just think it's a great opportunity. And so that's why, and as far as the differences, I love the kids. And so that's probably the biggest difference is that, when you're in a school, you've got those kids right there with you, and you can see that difference, that their education, what it's making in their life. It's a little more, in a district role, you're not quite as in, you're not in there as much. So I am excited too about just being back in a school directly with those children. But also being on the district level, it really opens your eyes to see more, because you get to see what's going on at all of these various places. And so it's been a great opportunity to be in this role so that you can see that bigger picture because as an administrator, you're focused on what you're doing at your school. And it's really just like in education, if you think about it, a lot of times as a teacher, you're in that room with your kids and you don't necessarily get to see what's going on in all these other classrooms. And then you become an administrator and you get to see what's going on in everybody else's classrooms. And you think, man, I'd have been a much better teacher if I had seen all these things, you know. So that kind of happens at every level where you get to see what's going on. And it helps you grow professionally yourself because you have that bigger, you know, reference of what you've seen and experienced. So.
You know, it strikes me, you use a lot of words of what we call the tenets of entrepreneurship. And the one that really strikes me, Amanda, is opportunity. And I think, you mentioned, risk is scary, but, I think that's why we're so excited for you, because it's such a huge undertaking. I can't imagine, all that you're going to bring to it. You've talked a lot about what you're excited about at Barton already and the rich, rich history. So can I ask you, being really interested in the arts, and you were a music teacher, band teacher, I love that. What are you going to bring? You mentioned the arts at Barton. What do you hope to do?
We do have, it's kind of wide open at this point. So I'm kind of exploring. I would love to have, like I said, some type of recording studio, because I'm trying to think about, I want to make the connection between the performing arts, but also the business side of it. And so that's one thing I'm thinking about and considering, but we'll definitely have some form of either band or possibly strings program. We have, strings and orchestra and opera downtown Mobile already. So either through forming partnerships with them, or possibly even just having it as a course. So we can have band or strings. And then we'll also have an art teacher as well. So there's, going to be a lot of various things that we can do to incorporate the arts. And then again, there's always that idea of the global aspect, considering, what does it look like? What do arts and music, studying it from a global perspective as well.
Well, we're excited about that because, we move more from STEM to STEAM, and the arts are so important. And it's kind of fun when we watch teachers in language arts and the arts connect the dots on entrepreneurship and business. So you're going to be up there out front and doing it. So it's exciting.
Especially since especially now when a lot of those programs are getting cut, it's really sad to see that happening.
Yeah, well, of course, I taught music and had that myself, but my children, my oldest son is in high school and he's in the band at his high school, and my middle school child is in the band at his middle school, and my youngest actually is in the strings program. So I've always been a big believer of the value of the arts and, the connections it makes in your brain and how it actually, increases your ability to learn. So, to me, I can't imagine why you wouldn't incorporate the arts. And I agree, it is so sad to see that a lot of times that's something that gets cut first if funding's not available or if time is not available. That tends to be what we cut, and I think that's a real travesty. And not to mention that sometimes that's the thing that you have to tap into your students and their interest, and sometimes that's the thing that brings kids to school. And that's what, where they're making those connections with friends, or that's what they're passionate about, or that may be what they're truly just really great at. And if you cut that away, then you've possibly, lost some interest in those students and their connection with what they're interested in at school. So I'm a huge proponent.
Why, that's the big deal. We talked about the why, and there's not a compelling goal. I have fortunately a very bright young man who's going into 5th grade who is not happy about school because he doesn't know why he has to go there. And so that's exactly Exactly why. You got to give them the why. So what advice, if I'm an administrator or a teacher that is wanting to shift my school or my classroom even in a more project-based learning way, what advice might you give to an educator who wants to make that shift or start to make that shift?
I think for one, you have to be careful not to allow whatever is, going on around you to be an excuse to not do something. Because a lot of times in education, I mean, there are a lot of mandates and things from every level. And I think that you have to start to figure out how you can just work within that to do what's best for your students. One thing that I find that I feel is really important is to be creative with your scheduling. I think that we are just so accustomed to doing things the way we've always done them, just because that's what we're used to and what we know, that sometimes we box ourselves in just with scheduling and things like that. So I would definitely say to be creative with how you schedule your school day, what you're doing within your school day. And then, you mentioned I've said opportunities a lot, but thinking about experiences and opportunities that you can provide to your students, because, we don't know what our children are able to do or where they're able to go or what experiences they're able to get. And so I feel very strongly that as educators, we have this ability to expose them to various experiences, and it's difficult to dream if you have no reference to know what to dream. So I think, thinking about ways to incorporate different types of experiences within your school day, because our kids may be limited to what we have within our school day. We can't, it's great to have after school and extracurriculars, but not every kid can have that opportunity. And so I think it's really important to be as equitable as you possibly can with the types of experiences you're offering within the school day, so that you can capture as many of those students' attention and give them those different chances and opportunities. Something that we had when I was principal at Austin, I mean, they're still continuing. We incorporated various labs. One we called a communication lab. And in that one, they learned how to use various forms of communication. And, it started like with kindergarten. They would create commercials or do things on camera. You've got like speaking and listening skills. I mean, everything that was done in there is tied to standards. It's tied to what, you are supposed to be learning, the standards that you're learning within the school day. But you're also giving them these experiences. We had, kids creating iMovie book trailers about, Cattle-Caught award-winning books. We had students doing flip books and just all kinds of different experiences in that lab. And then in our emerging technologies, we were giving students the opportunity to learn how to code. And they were doing, using the design thinking process. They were creating things on Tinkercad and printing them on the 3D printer. And those were being tied to various entrepreneurial projects, but they weren't separate. Those things aren't separate from what they're learning in their classroom. It's just that everything was getting tied together so that it's more meaningful for students. So as an administrator, you have this really wonderful ability to think outside the box and think about how you can provide the best experiences for your students so that you are exposing them to all that's out there and available to them in the world, so that they can grow up to do and be whatever it is that they want to be. So that would be some of my advice.
Awesome.
I don't want to talk. I could probably talk for 2 hours about it. So we don't want people to go to sleep.
Three of us, and I think we're all shaking our Toi and I are shaking our heads, because it's exactly, I think, what we agree with you. We try to do as parents. Toi and I've talked about that a lot, and I think the exposure is so important. You know, Toi and I both raise kids in these insular communities, and they're wonderful. It sounds like Mobile is a little bit about that too. But yet to have the ability to expose them to the world is just so important, because, you know, it's great to be in an insular community where everybody knows what you're doing and you're safe. Right. They know what they love if they don't see beyond their community.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, this time has flown by. My goodness. And we have to wrap for the sake of people driving home or whatever they're doing to listen. But will you share with us how to reach out? It sounds like you may be a little bit of transition with the Academy. What's the best way to reach you right now?
I would say definitely I am on Twitter. And I think that's one way to easily find and kind of keep up, because I try to tweet periodically about what's going on. So my Twitter handle is at Amanda, the letter U, 27. Also, Barton Academy for Advanced World Studies, I have started a Facebook and Instagram account. It's very new, obviously, but that's where I'll continue to post what's going on over this next year. And then especially as we open, I'm sure it will really ramp up then. But you can find on Facebook, it's Barton Academy for Advanced World Studies. And on Instagram, it's Barton Academy AWS. And so those are a few ways. And you're welcome to email me. My work email is acjones@mcpss.com. So those are a few ways to get in contact.
I did want to ask you, and I forgot to ask about how you're a prolific tweeter. And well, I know Mary V. Austin, your teachers were really engaged, and I thought maybe you could share just how that helped the community and promote what you're doing in the world, really. And
I think there's two great aspects. One, it's a great way to share your story. So, you know, when you, I guess for it doesn't have to be just school related business, but for me, that's what I know, you know, so for your school as a school leader, that's a great way to share your story of what's going on and getting a glimpse into what's going on at your school. It's also a great place to learn. You can find a lot of articles, and especially in the education world, you can follow a lot of educators, and it's a good way to kind of keep current and keep abreast of what's going on in the education community. But you know, it was definitely, you know, we had people reach out to us. I had someone visit us while I was there from Mississippi who had found us on Twitter, and then that's how they knew. And they became interested in the work of EntreEd and being America's entrepreneurial school just from seeing what we had been tweeting. And so they came and visited. I think Miss Wiggum, they had this past year, a group from Tennessee came down to Austin. And that, again, it was based on just being followed on Twitter and seeing what was going on. So it's definitely a great way to share, you know, best practices and share what you're doing at your school. So I would encourage anyone to do that if you haven't already.
I know I snuck that question in at the end, but I want you to share that, because a lot of educators are, me included, kind of shy about social media and not really sure how to get that started. But you did a phenomenal job with that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of Barton Academy as well. But thank you so much for being on the podcast today and for your time. And I'm sure our listeners will absolutely enjoy hearing your podcast when it comes out.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
We're very grateful.
Send those resumes to Amanda. She's hiring.
That's right. Send them on.
Mine
for the best of the best.
Thanks. This has been fun.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about it, to talk about my passion. I appreciate it.